there will never be a right time. It's
Hmm.
like birthing a baby. There will never be a right time.
Mhm.
So if you are dreaming about having this village, this community, this gathering of families, if you're thinking, I just wish I had a few more mom friends that I could see more
Mhm.
often, or I just wish my kids had a few friends to learn with once or twice a week, then do
Yeah.
it. Then make it happen.
Jean actually shared that advice at the very end of our conversation, but I thought it was the perfect place to begin because what you're about to hear is a conversation about building educational learning communities from scratch. Most parents have heard of homeschool co ops. Many are hearing about micro schools, but learning pods, they're still relatively unfamiliar. And Jean has built one that's serving over 100 students in the Indianapolis area. In this conversation, we talk about how she accidentally started it and why she structures it the way she does, different from traditional classrooms, and what parents should know if they want to create their own learning communities near them. Well, hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today I am here with my friend Jean Lee, and I am so excited to talk to Jean today about something that's probably a little unfamiliar to most of us, and that is the topic of learning pods. I have homeschooled for 18 years. And I don't think I know of any other learning pods, or I don't think I actually knew about them. I think the word kind of became popular during COVID. They might have existed before that. But Jean is an expert on learning pods. She has a very popular one in the Indianapolis area. So, welcome to the podcast, Jean.
Thanks, Sarah. It's always fantastic talking with you. So, first, I wanted to talk a little bit about the different types of co learning that exists in the alternative learning and homeschool space. And you actually were the organizer of a very large co op. You're super experienced in that realm. I think that's what most people typically think of when they think of co learning in alternative learning space in homeschooling. They think of a co op where it is run by parent volunteers, where they are required to participate in the administration of, in the teaching of, in the creation of learning for that group. It is a volunteer run group and it's not a tuition based group. So typically it's not drop off. And in this space, there are also micro schools, which are similar, more aligned with a private school type of scenario where there is tuition, it is drop off, and parents are not required to volunteer. Then a learning pod falls somewhere in the middle. So I host drop off classes 2 full days, and currently my ages range from 8 to 14, and it's skills based. So it's not based upon age, it's based upon ability to participate in the class and level of interest. So that in itself is a little bit different. Most other groups of learning are segregated by age. And so you may have an 8-year-old who is highly skilled and technical and well prepared to do middle school engineering, but they don't have access to that because they're young and it's separated by age group. And I love that I get to incorporate whoever's ready for that learning. It's beautiful to see all of these kids together.
Can I jump in and ask you a quick question? Maybe we
Yeah.
can circle back to this because I have been in the homeschool co op space for a really long time. And what you just mentioned is you have like 8 to 14-year-olds in one room, essentially doing
Yep.
the same type of learning, probably at their own level. It's not like everybody's got exactly the same skill and ability. I know a lot of groups like the idea of a bigger age range, but in my experience, and I've experienced that parents will be like, my child is a genius. I want to put them in the class with the big kids. They're 8, but they're really working at a 10th grade level or something like that. And that may or may not be true. It's usually not true. But anyway, they put their child in, and then everybody else who's in the class is not actually able to work at the appropriate level because their
Mm.
child, who is a genius, also doesn't follow directions or something like that. So, how do you, when people want to bring their child into your program, and you have such a wide variety of ages, how do you kind of sift through who would be a good fit and who maybe should wait another year or 2 or something like that?
Sure. I don't really have to sift a lot, actually. My classes are all academically focused. They require a high level of independence. They are teams based, so they require a huge amount of teamwork and collaboration and communication skills. And I'll be honest, the 8-year-old that I have actually outpaces in her writing ability a lot of the 10 and 12-year-olds. She is amazing. So I'm just very explicit in the requirements for the class, in the level of skill that's needed. And before students register, they know what they're in for. The other thing that I think is different is that I don't teach to the average or carry along the lowest student in the class. I teach to the highest student in the class. And so my expectation is that we're learning here, and what that does is it sets the bar high. It tells everyone this is our goal of learning. And then if you are here or here, yes, you're still at that level. The difference between my method of teaching and learning and a traditional classroom is that I am not carrying everyone ahead. We're using peer review to help them grow. And they may grow in that class, in that semester, in that year, but they may not. They may not reach that level. My students typically come along with me year after year. So I have students I've been teaching for 3 years. Some come just for a specific class, some come all day, but their skills grow dramatically in that environment where the peers are helping them learn, but that's not detracting from their education. And when you're doing teams focused work, when you're doing project based learning, they're putting the pieces together as a team and they're using their strengths. And what I have found is that each student has different strengths. Some are great at writing, some are great at project management, some are great at resource management, some are great at building. And that would be from the perspective of my engineering class. If someone is not doing rapid writing on their engineering notebook page, I tell them, look at your neighbor's page and write it down. If we've already moved on, look at your neighbor's page. That's not cheating in my class. That's using your resources wisely. That's
Yeah.
working as a team and supporting each other. And that's representative of the real world. So I try
Mhm.
to think about the skills that I want them to use to be successful. And I think about, what do I use in corporate America? What are we using in our everyday lives, in our home life, in our relationships, in our jobs? And try to develop that and make that a realistic perspective within the class.
Okay, so you have like clear expectations for the parents ahead of time. So they should sort of be able to opt out if their child is not
For
ready.
sure.
They should be able to read that and be like, oh, that's not a good fit for my kid.
Yeah.
And then you teach to the highest level in the class, essentially. So, I mean, I would say that's different than like a normal classroom. Even in like a co op, you don't end up teaching to the lowest level, but if you have several students that are like really below level, you do have to drop down because they can't keep up with the reading or they can't keep up with whatever. So, okay, so that's very good. That definitely sets the bar high for it being very academically focused.
Mhm.
So, how long ago did you start your learning path?
So I started 3 years ago, and how I began was, there's a program called JA BizTown. It's an economics curriculum with a full day in person simulation where kids get jobs, they run a city, there is an elected mayor, they receive a paycheck, they can buy and sell goods, and they're running a business. So it is very representative of the real world. I wanted my daughter to be able to do that. When I want them to do something, I call and ask. And I said, hey, if I get some other homeschool students, do you think we could come? It's typically traditional classroom kids who go. And they said, yeah, I think we could make that work. We'll, put you on with some other schools. And I said, okay. Well, within 2 weeks, 40 kids signed up. And
Wow.
I had no intention of being a teacher. My background is a neuroscientist by education and a large scale e commerce and global media strategist by trade. I was not, university educated teacher, although I do love teaching and I've had many roles where I did that. I never dreamed I would go down this path. So we went off to Biztown and it was amazing. And what I found was that it deeply nurtured a part of myself that I was missing. I really enjoyed the parent interaction. I thoroughly loved my time with those kids every day. And before I did it, I thought, well, wait, 40 kids, this could be amazing or this could go really sideways. And it was
Mhm.
great. It was great. And at the end of that class, the parents said, what are you going to teach next? And I said, well, I have a newborn at home. So I wasn't really planning on being a teacher. I just did this for my own daughter. And they said, oh, our kids loved you. You have to do something else. I said, well, what do you want to learn about? And we all decided geography. was what we were going to learn about. So that next semester, we did geography together and it was beautiful. And we did tons of cultural learning. We learned about statistics around the world. And then I also sponsored a citywide geography beat at the Westfield Library, which was fantastic and a great test of their knowledge. I think having a little bit of healthy competition is good,
Yeah.
sets the bar high again. And it teaches them that not winning isn't failing,
I love.
that there's always going to be someone smarter and you have to work hard to achieve things. So we just kept going, grew from there, turned into engineering, it turned into literature genres, it turned into writing genres. This semester, I have a class that is science, a physical science class called Dessert Lab, where we are learning properties of science through creating desserts each week. And just a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, that's really fun. Now, do you teach all the classes in your learning pod or do other people teach them too?
I do teach all of the classes in my learning pod, and that is because I still have very young children at home and I needed to be able to control my schedule. And the quality of learning is very important to me. So I know that I'm putting in 150% to writing that class. And each class that I teach is a new and original class. I'm not using someone else's curricula, although I do pull from existing curricula for my material because it's an academically focused learning pod. I still also needed to know that I need time for educating my own three children. So I partner with a lot of other instructors. There's a Spanish teacher that I collaborate with to teach Spanish. Many of the universities require 3 or 4 years of foreign language for applications. And I realized, wow, these middle schoolers need to have access to this. So I found an instructor and aligned her with my schedule of teaching. So that became available. This semester, I also am co teaching with a robotics instructor. So I'm teaching 5 classes. She's teaching 4 classes. Her focus is slightly different than mine. So that gives a bigger breadth of opportunity and learning.
Okay, interesting. So, how would you say it's different than like a micro school? What's the difference?
Sure. So a lot of micro schools really focus on enrichment programs and the core learning is done at home. Not to say there aren't some, classical education oftentimes focuses like a micro school and they're very academically focused. But in general, a lot of micro schools that I have found really focus on enrichment. It's fun, it's creative. They might have
Right.
music and art and a lot of recess and
Yeah.
playtime versus families who are coming to my classes are looking for a very specific experience of learning. And when those kids leave, their knowledge has grown. We do include lunch, and so lunch is just a free open time. I don't charge for that. We all stay because we're there, and I think the social aspect of our experience is really important. We often go outside, and I have a bin that's called the recess bin, and they say, "Hey, did you bring the fun toys?" And we'll go outside at lunch. There are a lot of experiences you can't have unless you have a huge group of kids, right?
That's right. Yeah.
It's really hard to do project-based learning without a huge group of kids. It's really
Yep.
hard to play a lot of recess games. Can't do double
Yep.
dutch unless you have at least 3 people. So,
Yep. My kids
we
take a
do.
gym class, and that's what the teacher said. She's like, I need a lot of kids to show up in order for this to be any fun. It's at the Y. And she's like, I need to make this inexpensive so families can afford it. So a lot of kids come. So the gym class is fun. It was a lot of so's in a
Yes,
row. Like essentially, you needed a lot of kids to be there in order for the class to even work the way you want the class to go. So yeah, it's true.
I
You
just
can't.
did a reel talking about the positives of large group learning. We
Mm,
discuss a lot about traditional classrooms have a lot of kids. Typically, it's 27 to 30 kids in a classroom, and there's often blame on that being the challenge of learning in that format. And I honestly don't think it's that at all. I think it's just a very defined methodology and structure. It doesn't work for every kid, and that's okay. My large group classes, they range from 27 to 40 kids, would not work unless they were that big. Nothing about them would work. You can't do teams based learning unless you have a whole bunch of them. And the really beautiful thing about that, I mean, I have 121 kids across 7 classes this semester, just this semester, just fall. And there's a friend for everyone. There's friends, multiple friends. what I find in the project based learning and the teams focused is that we mix up a lot. So I also don't see the clicks that often happen in other spaces. When it's enrichment focused, you don't have the same drive to accomplish together. When it's project based learning and it's academic, there is an end goal. There is a result you're trying to produce. That
Mm.
engineering project outcome, you want to create something that works. So everybody on that team is fully invested. And it may be someone you don't know, they're new. And that brings you together, that common goal in a different way.
The kids in your since you're doing a large class, do the kids in your group stay on the same team from week to week, or do you mix it up? Oh,
I
that's
mix it up.
nice.
I
You
mix
learn
it
how
up.
to work with different people.
You
Now,
do. That's really important.
yeah. Do you find okay, since you have a learning pod, have you met other people that have these? Are they common? Am I like, are they always called learning pods or are they called something else?
I have not really I'm sure there are other people that are doing this somewhere. I've not really met anyone who does it quite like me. Again, there are micro schools, and the micro schools that I know of are primarily enrichment focused. And students may bring their homework from home and have some type of study together of those core subjects. But I don't know anybody who is really as rigorous as I am in the learning. Now, one of the things I did start this year was a homeroom study hall session with tutors because I found there was also a dynamic between my oldest child and myself that became a challenge. And then I heard that same story from other parents, and I said, let's try this. Let's incorporate a 1 hour study hall that we're going to match up with a life skills lesson and an artist study. And so, what I do is I start the class with the life skills lesson. One week we did how to do laundry and folding and the requirements of it, why it's important and why it's a good life skill to have. We have done conflict resolution, we've done problem solving. We did a whole lesson on Cornell notes, study skills. We've done on how do you eat the frog and use Pomodoro method? How do you get through those hard tasks that you don't really want to do but are
Right.
necessary? So that's the life skills part. That's about 30 minutes. And then we will do an artist study. So bringing in the great works. And I think that's important because of social currency. So this idea of giving them things to talk about.
Yep.
And instead of maybe talking in our class about 6, 7, maybe we can talk about an artist. And these are well traveled kids. So many of them have been to museums and seen these great works. David, for example, we studied Michelangelo at the beginning of the semester. And then a whole bunch of the kids went on a trip to Italy and saw the statue in person.
Cool.
And it
Yeah.
was so cool because we didn't even plan that. I didn't know they were going, but they came back and had that knowledge, had that social currency, had that way
Yeah.
of connecting with others that brings value in life.
Yes.
So I also assign an essay each week based on that artist. And when they come back the following week to homeroom, we choose 5 people to do a presentation. So they have public speaking as well. And we do all of that in 1 hour. So there's
Yeah.
a huge amount of skill wrapped up
Yeah.
in that. And then we have study hall with tutoring. The other thing is because we're now aware of eating the frog and the Pomodoro method, we can plow through so much more homework than if they're at home dragging their feet with mom and, complaining about doing the math. That's a really
That's true.
benefit. Um, I can work with the parents on things that are challenging, whether it's finding a different curricula that works or mentoring through methodology. So that kind of situation in our learning pod benefits the whole family. That's also very different. I have not heard of someone else who is doing that.
No, that's definitely different. And I'm thinking like if somebody's listening to this and they're like, "Okay, I like this. I like the idea of like teaching a group of kids." And I like, well, first, like how are you organized? Are you organized as a nonprofit, as an LLC? Like how did you like legally structure yourself?
Sure. I am organized as an LLC. And the reason that I chose that is because I put so much heart and soul into making this a reality for my children and everyone else who comes along that I wanted to be able to continue to curate this experience as I needed it to grow. And in the future of the Academy of Chaos, where is this going? It could grow into a micro school. It could stay a learning pod. It could become more focused as a co-op? I don't know. There's a long
Yeah.
runway ahead of us, but if I were to choose to do it as a not-for-profit, I am then required to be managed by a board of directors. And
That's
I
right.
don't have that same opportunity to curate this experience.
Which that is a very clear distinction that I think when people start programs, they sometimes are a little unaware. They just think like a nonprofit means you can't make a profit, which isn't actually true. And they don't really understand the differences. And so sometimes they kind of fall into one group or another because, oh, it's easier to file the paperwork for an LLC, or like they just have a reason that they choose one or the other. But your reason for wanting to have full control over the ability to curate the program is a very solid reason for why you would want to choose LC, because once you have a board involved, now if you had a board and you said, I want to change the direction of my programs, or I want to meet at a different location, or I want to
Mhm.
charge more or less, you would have to get a board's approval for all those decisions, which, if you're creative and innovative and want to have full control, would not work very well. So,
No. Yes,
yeah.
it does not work.
However, I mean, a board does have benefits when people are trying to grow a program and eventually they're like, I'm only one person. I only have 24 hours in a day. And then you can like divide some of the effort up. So there is a benefit to the other, but yes, you should definitely know what your top priority is when you start a program. Oh, all right. So
Yeah.
you started, and now if somebody wanted to start a pod, and if you were to go all the way back to the beginning and start all over again, like, and you didn't really know you were tripping into this when you tripped into it. Like, you didn't know where it was going. Probably still don't know where it's going. But like, if somebody wanted to start one of these, and what would a few pieces of advice be for them?
I've told several moms who said, I would like something like this, or I would like something like that. And, there's always opinions of I should create this or I should create that. I tell them, find something that your family is interested in and passionate about. What do you like learning? How do you like learning? If you like learning outdoors, then create a group for learning outdoors. I like learning about science and engineering and building and technology. And so I incorporate those things. I am not great at learning outdoors, and therefore I don't teach outdoors. Find things that you are excited about because you're more likely to stick with it. And I would say that is the biggest watch out in this space is and it somewhat goes along with the idea of having a board of directors. It's easy for people to have opinions and ideas and say, "Oh, this would be great." But I promise you at the end of the day, the only person who's going to show up to make it happen is you.
Mhm.
So when you're dealing with a bunch of people volunteering, that can be very difficult to organize. I know what's going to happen on Wednesday and Thursday when I go to teach because I'm making it happen. And I don't have to worry about anything else not being done, crumbling, falling apart, not being adequate learning because I am the one ensuring it's happening. And that might sound kind of like a control freak, but it's also very time consuming to organize a group of volunteers and still having young children. I don't have time to herd all the cats. I don't have time to organize a bunch of volunteers to make sure each week things are going on and on. I need to be able to be nimble in my season of life. And so if someone is thinking about creating a learning pod, a co-op, a micro school, how should I format it? Should I be an LLC? Should I be a not-for-profit? Think about your time constraints and that'll define where you go. Think about your interests, and that'll define what you teach and where you end up. Think about the
Mhm.
space that's available. I am very fortunate to have amazing collaborators in our city that I work with to host my learning opportunities. See what's around you. And I kind of think the universe is going to guide you. The places you are meant to be will be. Where you're supposed to show up at will show up. So you just have to
You
look
sort of
around.
have to start going down the path and meeting people sometimes to figure it out a little bit, because like some locations won't let an LLC meet there, right? Like a lot of churches would not let an LLC use their space, or they would charge them a lot more for
A lot.
rent. And sometimes your insurance changes if you're a nonprofit. sometimes your insurance changes if you have parents on site versus not having parents on site. Because if they know they're going to have 30 parents there versus one parent there, the insurance price might be different. So sometimes people, when they're trying to create something, they need to do a little bit of research
Yeah.
first before kind of nailing it down. Now, your program meets at a library,
Mhm.
right? Now, do you find that that's common for homeschool groups to meet in libraries? Or you said you have other teachers that come there too and teach, right? Like they kind of come and teach alongside you. Have you
Yeah.
found that that's common for libraries to be welcoming to groups like yours?
It's really hit or miss. And it's a relationship that I have cultivated that I value deeply. And I support the library and a lot of other endeavors. Not every library does support having this space available, but I'm very, very fortunate to have the support of the Westfield Library and that they care deeply about the families being there. And there are many opportunities across their space that fill up because there are so many kids and families coming. There's a lot of value in that. It's
Yeah.
a reciprocal relationship. It's
Yeah.
not one-sided. I support many things happening there, and we work very closely together. But there are many other spaces. There are parks and rec departments. There are township departments. You can partner with places like a pickleball court or, a zoo. You just have to start calling. And that is, I think, the crux of where people decide, are we going to be a success and a go, or is it too much? It's a lot of effort. It is not a small endeavor to do what I do and what you have done. It's a huge commitment of time, resources, and you have to be willing to just be boots on the ground, calling, calling, calling.
So you are kind of like a one man show. You collaborate better than pretty much anybody I know with pretty much everybody around you all over the place. Like you know everybody. But because you're a one man show and you're running your learning pod, have you found like that how do you show up when you like let's say somebody gets sick or you like something happens, total breakdown, you can't get there. Like have you created something for yourself that like we have to take a day off? Like what do you do? Like that's kind of the downside of being a one man show is like there's just one of you. So what do
Yeah.
you do to manage that?
I I love being an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and it's the thing in life. This is my fourth business. It's the thing in life that excites me. It's fun, and I just love the collaboration. I love the people surrounding me. I love the teaching. I love the partnerships. But there is no redundancy when you are an entrepreneur. There is not. So, I tell all of my families, do not come if you're sick. Do not come if you're sick because many reasons. One, I don't have anyone as a backup. So we've lost that day if I'm sick. It's really
Mhm.
important that I'm not sick. But also, we have students, wants to go travel and they're sick. We have students who are immunocompromised. And so that is one firm policy that I put in place. If you're sick, don't come if you're coughing and sneezing. And that's just, I think, a kindness that is sometimes forgotten in our culture. We're moving so fast that we think nothing of going places when we're sick. But I do really ask, don't come if you're sick. If I have a crisis, I mean, I have had a crisis where I do have a babysitter for my youngest child. Her grandmother passed away, and so I didn't have backup. And that little 3-year-old came with me all day, and she was great. But also, that's the beauty of this space is no one questioned that I was still going to be able to do my job well with my own child in tow.
Mhm. That's true.
Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing that I have cultivated and created a space that is family centric, where there have also been times that a parent had to take care of something and they said, "Can my other child sit in on your class?" Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Someone was having surgery and they're carpooling and they asked, "Can this student that's in your earlier class stay on because the mom from the second class is going to drive home?"
Oh,
Absolutely. So I love, I've worked in some of the world's most recognized brands, many corporate jobs. And I love being in this space now that is about family, that lets me
mhm.
put my children first, that lets me support others. the parents, the kids,
Mhm.
and also something really positive about being an LLC and an entrepreneur is that I get to make that choice. If I
True.
was not in that situation, I couldn't automatically say, "Yes, your child can stay, and guess what? I'm not gonna charge you for that."
Yes,
I
that's
get
true.
to make that call, and I love being able to be generous in that way.
Yeah. So do you have a backup? Like, let's say you would need to miss for like 2 weeks for some reason.
I
Hopefully
don't get to
never.
miss.
But like you don't have a backup. So you would just like cancel class if you had to.
If you know what, if I had something traumatic happen, I would have to cancel my classes and refund those classes. But I think
There's a
that's
lot of
common.
incentive there not to cancel class then, right? Like as an
Yeah, there
entrepreneur, I feel like your excuses are like you have a
none,
lot less excuses. Yeah,
none.
we're not sick. We're
No.
getting there. Flat tire this morning. We'll still be there.
I mean, this is a funny story I'll tell you. So 2 weeks ago, we were kicking off dessert lab, and that morning we were making donuts that day. I was making batter at 4 o'clock in the morning, getting everything ready. I am about to run out the door. I reach in the cupboard to grab the spray for the donut machines. I had a cute dress on and a sweater. And just as I did that, the glass olive oil bottle from Costco size fell out of the cupboard, shattered on my granite countertop, poured all over me in my dress. Now let's just think, my dress is soaked in oil. I couldn't just change real quick because I also basically just had an oil bath. So I had to hurry up and change. And, I'm just like getting there on time. I texted one of the other moms and said, "Oh my gosh, I just had an oil bath. I got to go wash off real quick. I'm going to be 10 minutes late." In that sense, I do feel like that generosity is also reciprocated. I was 10 minutes late for my class. No one was upset because I've been generous. You know what? When they called and
Yes.
said, "We're going to be late for pickup," and I'm sorry, I'm there.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
got your
Right.
kids.
You're gonna
They're
leave the
safe.
kid.
I'm good. I'm never
Yeah.
planning to be somewhere 10 minutes after my class ends because
Yes.
I have so many students. Any crisis could happen. I plan my time to support them. And
Yeah.
therefore, when I have a moment of crisis, they are reciprocating that. And I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge, like, mindset thing that people kind of whether you have an LLC or a nonprofit or whatever, like, whatever model you pick, you really do have to go into it with the idea that that there's a give and take in all the
Yes.
relationships, that you're going to be as generous as you can, reasonably, and that will be reciprocated because
Yeah.
none of us are perfect. None of us have like perfect circumstances. Things do not always go as planned. And like, I love that even with your library setup, that you like try to find a way to support the library and collaborate with them in other. I haven't really explored that with homeschool groups, but I think that that would be a wise mindset just in general, whatever space you're in. Like, and even if you're paying or you're not paying, but having that mindset where you are trying to give back even in the way you show up in the community and talk about the space that you use and you refer people. I think that's such a wise mindset and also leads to people wanting to work with you more easily. I don't see
Yeah.
that happening all the time though.
I mean, I sponsor their table at the Midwest Homeschool Expo every year. I
Oh,
provide
okay.
them an advertising opportunity in the resource guide. I sponsor the geography bee and help organize and coordinate it and
Okay.
do all of the promotions for it. So I do really love the reciprocity that we have.
That's cool.
And I took them chocolates. I like to take them treats. It feels like I have a great group of colleagues as well being
Yeah.
there with the library staff. Otherwise, I would really be doing this by myself. But I love that space. I love we have access to the makerspace. So I've been utilizing their robotics resources, their 3D printing
Nice.
resources. And when I say the word community, it means more than just the small circle of families that I've cultivated. It
Yeah.
truly means community.
Mm,
Everyone is welcome, not just my space that I see fit to come. It truly is a hub and a foundation for homeschoolers and alternative learning in the entire area. Kids come from over an hour away in each direction to
wow.
attend my learning pod. I mean, they come from the far south of Indianapolis, They come from the far Northeast. They come from the far West. They come from as far away as Lafayette to
Wow.
join in our learning. And I love being able to support not just our small little pod, not just our small little town, but families and children that come from far away. So when I
Yeah.
see it truly is a center of learning and community,
Mm.
it's huge.
If you were going to leave somebody with a word of wisdom about starting a learning pod or starting a program as we wrap up, what would your word of wisdom or kind of final thought be for them?
Put it out there to the universe, post it in a Facebook group, put it on your
Yeah.
Instagram, send it to everyone you know in an email. Find a community space that you can partner with to start something. But go and do it. Start something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so wise because sometimes those of us that are planners like really get into our own head. We think we have to figure it all out before we start. But you can start before you have any of it figured out. You can literally just put your idea out there and see if anybody else is interested and then build from there. So that's really great advice and you can start with what you have. Whether you have
Yeah.
a lot of space, a lot of you can start out of your own house and a lot of people do that too. They just start with whatever they have and then they build. So,
Yes.
Jean, thank you so much for being here. This was amazing. I now need to go look and see if there's any learning pods in my area because have no idea. This is for real. I think you are the only one that I know that has a learning pod. So th this can't be that uncommon, but now I need to go figure out what I've been missing out on. So
Well, if there
thank you
aren't,
so
we need
much.
to make more.
We need to make more. That's right. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Sarah.